arid expanse of the southwestern United States once cradled the earliest settlements of the Navajo, a tribe whose roots stretch across New Mexico, Utah, and Arizona. With a rich history of tribal warfare, Navajo warriors later joined American forces during World War II, earning renown as Navajo code talkers. Their native tongue, woven into encrypted radio messages, stumped Japanese code breakers across the Pacific Island campaigns. But beyond their wartime heroics, the Navajo preserve stories of the uncanny, tales of strange entities like the Skinwalker, a figure feared and revered, believed to be a medicine man or woman who turned to evil, consuming human flesh and gaining immortality. Only death in their animal form can end them, their power extending to invading minds with visions and sounds. These legends, passed down through generations, find echoes in modern accounts from U.S. servicemen training in remote areas, suggesting encounters with something otherworldly. Benny's Corner Cafe sat at the edge of a sleepy road in rural Kentucky, nestled between a worn-out gas station and a bait shop with a sign unchanged since 1994. It was the kind of place where the coffee was always hot, the jukebox slightly out of tune, and the regulars didn't need menus. The bell above the door chimed with every entry, and everyone knew each other's names, except for the occasional stranger passing through. Behind the counter, Clara Hill, 48, moved with practiced efficiency. She wore a faded blue apron, a silver name tag, and a scar that ran from the corner of her left eye down to her chin. Most folks didn't mention it. The regulars had learned, by instinct or decency, not to ask. They just thanked her when she brought their pie and maybe left a generous tip. But that scar told a story, whether people asked or not. 16 years ago, Clara had been a field medic during Operation Enduring Freedom. She didn't talk about what happened in Kandahar, but those who knew her well understood the scar wasn't from some accident. It was earned under fire. She'd been stabilizing a young private whose leg was shattered by an IED when a second mortar struck. Clara took shrapnel to the face, the force slamming her into the side of a medical Humvee. The boy survived. She never learned his name. After 3 surgeries and a medical discharge, she returned home, not to applause or ceremony, but to silence, a stack of VA paperwork, aching joints, and a kitchen job she'd never wanted. Now she worked 6 days a week at Benny's, serving pancakes instead of plasma, finding peace in the quiet rhythm of the diner. The lunch crowd that day was typical. Truckers at the counter flipping through newspapers, a retired couple near the window splitting a grilled cheese. Clara found comfort in the predictability. Take the order, fill the coffee, smile, repeat. Then the bell rang. 5 of them entered loud, 3 men, 2 women, wearing designer sunglasses and overpriced jackets that screamed, "Not from around here." Weekend tourists from the city, likely heading to trendy lake resorts, the kind who found charm in rustic diners, so long as the Wi-Fi was strong and the food came with hashtags. Clara approached with her usual warmth. "Welcome to Benny's. I'll be taking care of you all today. Can I start you with something to drink?" The man in a tailored navy blazer lowered his menu, his eyes locking on her scar like it was a road map to something unpleasant. He winced, visibly winced, then muttered, loud enough for the table but too loud to be private, "Yikes, did Halloween come early?" One woman chuckled uncomfortably, but Clara didn't flinch. "I'll give y'all a moment with the menus," she said, turning away. The man wasn't done. "Hey," he called, voice raised. "I asked you a question. What happened to your face? You fall asleep on a chainsaw?" The diner froze. Forks stopped mid-air. Conversations halted. Clara stood still, back to them, not turning, not dignifying it. Quietly, she said, "I'll send another server to your table," and walked toward the kitchen, steps measured, shoulders square. Only her eyes betrayed the sting, and even then barely. Later, people would say they didn't know what to do, that they were too shocked. But silence has a weight. It lets cruelty sit like a guest of honor. Clara had carried that weight before, over sand, under fire, beside dying men who didn't make it back. This was just another scar, not visible, but no less real. Millions of veterans wear their battles daily. Some hide beneath sleeves, some behind quiet smiles and diners like this. In the kitchen, Clara set the tray down, hands trembling slightly, the way they used to after discharge. She focused on lining up water glasses, edge to edge, steadying herself as she once had in a combat tent with a flashlight and morphine needle. Laughter drifted in from the tourist table, and near the back, a boy in a cadet uniform had stopped eating, watching. Clara Hill never talked about Afghanistan, not because she'd forgotten, but because she remembered too much. Sometimes, when kitchen steam rose just right, mixing with the clatter of plates and the sharp smell of grilled onions, it transported her back to that heat, the real kind, of sand, fire, and panic. At 29, she'd deployed as a combat medic with steady hands and a knack for calming soldiers twice her size, with a firm look and quiet voice. They joked she could stitch a wound faster than most could load a rifle, and it wasn't far from the truth. The day it happened, they'd been ambushed near a supply route outside Paktia province. A convoy took a hit, 3 men down. Clara sprinted toward the smoking Humvee, medical bag bouncing, gunfire popping in the distance. Her world narrowed to those wounded, one with a tourniquet but losing blood fast, another with burns, the third, a kid, maybe 19, not moving. She dragged them to cover, applied pressure, called for evac. The mortar came without warning, slamming hard. She never saw the shrapnel that cut her face, just the blood, the pain, then silence. 3 soldiers lived because of her that day. No medals followed, no ceremonies, just recovery rooms, forms, and a long flight home where no one met her at the airport. The VA called it non-life-threatening trauma. She called it a second birthday. But what followed was harder. Red tape, delayed appointments, disability benefits under review. For a while, she lived in her pickup truck, slept under overpasses, brushed her teeth at gas stations. A local church offered hot meals a few nights a week, and she took them without pride. Eventually, things turned. Benny's wasn't hiring when Clara walked in, but owner Ben Strickland, a Vietnam vet, saw the look in her eyes, the distance, the exhaustion, the fight still flickering. He didn't ask about her scar. "I can pay cash until we get the paperwork done," he said. "You know your way around a kitchen?" "Yes, sir," Clara replied. "You say 'sir' one more time, and I'll make you clean the fryer," he joked. She smiled for the first time in weeks. Ben was old school, quiet about Vietnam, but he watched her those first weeks. Not out of distrust, but understanding. He saw her flinch at loud noises, scan every room, struggle to relax. Eventually, he stopped watching because she showed up. Early, reliable, calm. Benny's ran better with her, and customers got used to the scar, or at least learned to stop staring. Small towns are funny. They wave, ask about your dog, but rarely about the things that matter. That afternoon, Clara just wanted to get through lunch. No drama, just table numbers and refills. But cruelty found her again. From the kitchen, she felt the room shift as the man's laughter continued. Someone noticed. A boy in a cadet uniform, Jacob Meyers, 16 tall and lean, wore a crisp gray uniform with deep blue trim and a brass pin from Riverside Military Academy. Lunch with his mom, Laura, was meant to be quiet after visiting his late father's memorial in Lexington. But when the man mocked Clara, no one spoke. Jacob's stomach twisted. His dad, Captain Michael Meyers, died 2 years ago in a roadside bomb. Since then, Jacob had thrown himself into the academy, wearing his father's dog tags daily. He noticed things: disrespect to the uniform, to those who wore it. He saw Clara's tremble, the mockery rolling off the man's tongue. He didn't know her name yet, but he knew her story. Jacob's fork scraped as he pushed his cold grilled cheese aside. "Jacob, wait," Laura whispered, worried. "She doesn't deserve that," he replied. "I know, honey, but this isn't our fight. That's the problem," he muttered. "It's never anyone's fight until someone makes it theirs." He stood. The diner went still again. Jacob walked to the man's table, spine straight, hands at his sides. The man smirked. "Well, look at this. Junior G.I. Joe." Jacob didn't flinch. "That scar represents honor," he said, voice steady, nodding toward Clara. "You only have a mouth." A gasp rippled through the room. A truck driver stood. "He's right. My daughter came back from Afghanistan with burns and PTSD. That waitress is braver than half the people I've met." A nurse added, "I worked at Walter Reed. Those scars are badges." The man's swagger faded. "It was just a joke," he tried. "Jokes are supposed to be funny," Jacob said. "Cruelty isn't comedy." He turned to Clara. "Thank you," he said simply. Her throat tightened. "What's your name?" she asked softly. "Jacob Meyers, Riverside Military Academy, ma'am." "You don't have to mom me," she said. "Not after today." Ben appeared. "Time to pay up," he told the man firmly. They left, tossing guilty bills. The room warmed with quiet acknowledgement. As Jacob returned to his table, Clara watched with peace she hadn't felt in years. Near the counter, she approached him. "You heading out?" "Yes, ma'am," he replied. He offered her his brass leadership pin, earned for a rescue drill. "Today, I realized I didn't earn this as much as I thought." "You've been living that courage." Clara accepted it, pinning it beside her name tag. "Thank you," she said. "Your father would be proud. So would yours," she added. The pin gleamed, a symbol of being seen again. Outside, the Kentucky sky turned gold. Clara caught her reflection. Survival, not just damage. Heroes don't always wear uniforms. Sometimes they carry trays. Jacob's stand reminded us to see those battles, to honor quiet courage. Have you witnessed disrespect and stayed silent? What would you say next time? Comment below. Like, subscribe, and share with someone who needs this. Thank you for honoring those who carry service's weight with dignity.